Hey Logan, ever feel like you're just constantly running, like the pause button on life is stuck?
Oh, Lander, you're speaking my language. It's like the world's spinning faster, and we're all just trying to keep up. I mean, between work, family, social commitments, and just, you know, existing. Rest sometimes feels like a luxury I can't afford.
Exactly. And it makes me think about this ancient concept, one that's been around for millennia. Actually, the Sabbath. It's more than just a day off, isn't it? It's like a radical act of defiance against that constant hustle.
It really is. When you hear Sabbath, I think a lot of people immediately jump to religious connotations, maybe even picturing strict rules or boredom. But what if we unpack it today, go all the way back to its very roots? Because, honestly, the idea of an intentional, divinely mandated day of rest is fascinating.
Absolutely. Let's start right at the beginning, shall we? Because the concept of Sabbath isn't introduced later in human history, it's right there in the creation narrative. Genesis chapter 2 tells us that after God created everything in 6 days, on the seventh day he rested from all his work. And then it says, God blessed the seventh day and made it holy.
That's wild to think about. God, who doesn't get tired, right? The omnipotent creator of the universe, chose to rest. It wasn't because he needed to recover from a busy week of creation. It seems more like he was setting an example, a rhythm for the entire cosmos and for humanity within it, a pattern for flourishing.
Right? It's not about his limitation. It's about his design. It implies that rest is inherently good. It's part of the fabric of existence, not just something we do when we're exhausted. It's built into the rhythm of life itself. And what's interesting is it's presented even before the fall, before sin entered the world. So it's not a remedy for toil, it's a celebration of creation and a pattern for living.
That's a powerful distinction. It's not because you're going to work so hard and screw things up, you'll need a day off. This is how life is designed to function optimally with a cycle of work and rest. And then, centuries later, we see it codified, right? With the Israelites, after their escape from Egypt, it becomes one of the 10 Commandments.
Yes, exactly. Exodus 20, the fourth commandment. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, and it extends to your sons, daughters, male and female servants, livestock, and even foreigners residing among you. It's incredibly inclusive.
What strikes me there is the remember. It's not just do, it's remember. It's like they're being told, don't forget this foundational rhythm. And it is not just a personal thing, it's a societal mandate. Everyone, down to the animals, gets to participate in this rest. It is a radical statement against exploitation, ensuring even the most vulnerable in society get a break.
Absolutely. And T here is a subtle but crucial shift in Deuteronomy 5 when Moses reiterates the commandments. It still says to keep the Sabbath holy, but it adds, remember that you were slaves in Egypt and that the Lord your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. It ties the Sabbath to their liberation, their freedom.
Wow. So, it is not just a creation principle, but also a freedom principle. You were slaves. You didn't have the luxury of rest. Now that you're free, you do, and God provides for it. It's a reminder that their identity isn't defined by endless toil, but by His grace and provision. That's incredibly profound, especially for people coming out of literal slavery.
It truly is. It's a weekly declaration that God is their provider, not their own ceaseless labor. And for us today, in a world that often measures our worth by our productivity, that's a powerful counter-cultural message, isn't it? That our worth isn't in what we fay do fay, but in who we fay air fay, beloved by a creator who designed us for rest.
I think so. But let's be honest, over time, the observance of the Sabbath, particularly in ancient Israel, became quite regulated. By the time Jesus comes along, there are a lot of extra biblical rules and interpretations around it. And Jesus has some pretty strong things to say about that, doesn't he?
Oh, he absolutely does. This is where it gets really interesting. Jesus constantly challenged the legalistic interpretations of the Sabbath. He healed on the Sabbath. He allowed his disciples to pluck grain on the Sabbath. And the religious leaders were furious. They accused him of breaking the law.
Yeah, like the famous line, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath." It's such a simple yet profound statement that cuts through all the man-made rules and gets to the heart of the matter. The Sabbath wasn't meant to be a burden. It was meant to be a blessing.
Exactly. He wasn't abolishing the Sabbath. He was restoring its original intent. He was essentially saying, hey guys, you've missed the point. This day is about human flourishing, about meeting needs, about experiencing freedom and joy, not about an arbitrary list of dos and don'ts that make people feel oppressed or guilty. It was about showing mercy.
And that really resonates, especially today. Sometimes religious practices can become so focused on the letter of the law that they lose the spirit. Jesus consistently brought it back to love, compassion, and human well-being. So, after Jesus, how did the early church, and then later, different Christian traditions, approach the Sabbath?
That's a great question, Logan. You see a shift quite early on. While Jesus was Jewish and observed the Jewish Sabbath after his resurrection, the early Christians began to gather on the first day of the week, Sunday, to commemorate his resurrection. This became known as the Lord's Day. You see references to it in the New Testament, like in Acts 20:7, where it talks about breaking bread on the first day of the week, or 1 Corinthians 16:2 about setting aside offerings.
So, for many Christians, Sunday became the de facto day of worship and rest, not as a direct replacement of the Jewish Sabbath, but as a new commemoration of Christ's triumph over death. It's less about the specific day and more about the principle of setting aside a day for God, worship, and rest. Would you say that's accurate?
I think that's a perfect way to put it. Different Christian traditions interpret this differently. Some, like Seventh-day Adventists, continue to observe the Sabbath on Saturday. Many other denominations observe Sunday as the Lord's Day, often integrating elements of rest and worship. Others focus more on the spiritual principle of Sabbath rest, applying it to any day or even throughout the week, as a rhythm of life rather than a strict calendar observance.
It's interesting how diverse the interpretations are, but the core concept, that need for intentional pause, for stepping away from the grind, remains. So let's bring this to today. In our hyper-connected, always-on world, why is the Sabbath, or at least the principle of Sabbath, more important than ever?
Oh, Logan, it's absolutely crucial. We live in a society that glorifies busyness. The hustle culture tells us that if we're not constantly producing, we're falling behind. Our phones buzz with notifications, emails demand immediate replies, and the lines between work and home have blurred, especially after the pandemic.
Totally. There's this unspoken pressure to be on all the time. And the result? Burnout, anxiety, mental health struggles. We're physically exhausted, emotionally drained, and spiritually malnourished. We've lost the art of simply being rather than doing.
Exactly. The Sabbath offers a radical antidote to that. It's a weekly act of rebellion against the tyranny of urgency. It's saying, I am not defined by my productivity. I am not a machine. My worth does not come from what I accomplish. It's an affirmation of our humanity, a reclaiming of our time and our souls.
And it's not just about stopping work. It's about actively engaging in activities that restore us. For some, that might be deep spiritual reflection, prayer, or worship. For others, it might be spending quality time with loved ones, enjoying nature, reading a book, or engaging in a hobby purely for enjoyment with no agenda.
Right. It's about moving from frantic activity to intentional rest and delight. It's about remembering our dependence on something greater than ourselves, whether that's God or simply the natural rhythms of life. It's a weekly reminder that the world will not fall apart if we step away for a day.
And honestly, for me, sometimes the biggest challenge is actually allowing myself to rest. There's a guilt that can creep in, like I should be doing something productive, or the fear of missing out, you know?
Oh, absolutely, Logan. It's a mindset shift. It requires intentionality. It's not just passively not working. It's actively choosing practices that bring refreshment and connection. It could be a digital Sabbath where you unplug from screens, or a social Sabbath where you limit social interactions to truly be present with family.
Yeah, I've tried that. Just putting the phone away for a whole day feels revolutionary sometimes. It's amazing how much more present you feel. It's not about being unproductive. It's about being recreative, in a sense. It's about filling your tanks, how you have more to give in the other 6 days.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Recreative. It's not just an absence of work. It's the presence of something life-giving. It's where we reconnect with our inner selves, with our loved ones, and for those of us who believe, with our Creator.
And it's so important to model this for younger generations, too. We don't want to raise kids who think their worth is tied to how many extracurriculars they do, or how many followers they have. We want them to understand the value of slowing down, of quiet reflection, of simply being.
Definitely. It's teaching them that rest isn't a reward for hard work, but a fundamental part of a healthy, holistic life. It's an invitation to trust, to release control, and to find joy in simple things. So what's one practical thing you try to do or encourage others to do to incorporate a Sabbath rhythm into their lives?
For me, it's about intentional boundaries. I try, keyword try, to have one full day where I don't check work emails, I don't do chores that feel like work, and I prioritize activities that bring me joy and peace. Whether that's a long walk, cooking a nice meal with no rush, or just reading in silence. It's an ongoing practice, not a perfect achievement, you know?
I love that, Logan. Ongoing practice. Because it really is. For me, it's about preparation. Trying to get everything done the day before so that when my chosen Sabbath time arrives, I'm not scrambling. And then it's consciously asking myself what would truly nourish me today and giving myself permission to do that without guilt.
Permission. That's a huge one. It's like we need permission from ourselves to actually rest. With a strange paradox in our modern world, right?
It really is. So as we wrap up today, Logan, what's your ultimate takeaway from this journey through the Sabbath from creation to today?
I think my biggest takeaway is that the Sabbath isn't just an ancient religious commandment. It's a timeless, universal principle for human flourishing. It's an invitation to remember that we are finite, dependent beings designed for a rhythm of work and rest. And embracing that rhythm isn't just good for our souls. It's essential for our well-being in every sense.
Beautifully put. And I'd add that it's a declaration of trust. Trust that the world won't fall apart without our constant input. And trust that there is a provider who sustains us even when we lay down our tools. The Sabbath is a gift, a weekly opportunity to step off the hamster wheel and remember what truly matters. Thanks for exploring this with me today, Logan.
Thanks, Lander. It's been a truly refreshing conversation. And maybe, just maybe, it's a good reminder for all of us listening to find our own Sabbath rhythm this week, even if it's just an hour of intentional unplugging.
Couldn't agree more. Until next time, everyone, find your rest.